I went snowshoeing with some people and I'd never done that before. And those shoes are so awkward. At one point, I was trying to turn around and like fully fell on my butt. But again, it's like when you're with people in recovery, you feel totally comfortable to have those moments. Like there's something about it that I think just kind of like made me feel so much more at ease of like, okay, I'll go snowshoeing with a bunch of strangers and be out in the wilderness for 8 hours, you know?
I love that you said that it's okay. Like, it's okay to be awkward. Like, because we're all awkward. We have no liquid courage. So we're all just leaning into the awkward and just letting it all hang out. And I have never been snowshoeing, but I feel like that's something I could try. I feel like that's an activity I could do without harming myself. Welcome to the Sober Curator podcast, where sobriety isn't just a lifestyle choice, it's the ultimate life hack. I'm Alysse Bryson, your fearless guide to a world where hangovers are canceled, fun is mandatory, and we still know how to shut down a dance floor, just with better shoes.
And I'm Tamar Routly, aka T-Bouge, your co-pilot, chaos coordinator, and the one who keeps Alysse from turning this podcast into a full-blown reality show. Buckle up, sober party people.
From lifestyle and travel to pop culture and zero-proof cocktails, we're serving up the stories, trends, and guests that prove sobriety isn't just about what you're missing. It's about finally remembering where you left your keys. Let's get the party started. Welcome back to the Sober Curator podcast. I'm your host, Alysse Bryson, and today we are exploring what happens when two incredible women take sobriety to new heights, literally and figuratively. If you've ever dreamed of making sober living not just a lifestyle, but an adventure filled with empowerment, connection, and purpose, then this is the episode for you. Joining us today are two remarkable leaders in the recovery space. I'm so excited that they're here. We're going to dive into their inspiring stories and unique approaches on redefining sober living. First, we have Mary Tilson, a professional recovery coach, trauma-informed yoga and meditation teacher, and founder of Sun and Moon Sober Living. Mary's global retreats and podcast are changing the way we think about recovery, emphasizing holistic well-being and adventure. And joining her is one of my Chicago besties, Carrie Nicole May, a nurse practitioner, certified recovery coach, and founder of Brave, a boutique adventure recovery coaching practice. Carrie is also the powerhouse behind Chicago AF, which I'm sure if you're a regular Sober Curator reader, you've seen information on our site about Chicago AF. It's a nonprofit that's bringing fun and connection to the sober community in the greater Chicago area. These two trailblazers literally embody the bold, brave spirit of recovery and reinvention. Welcome, Mary and Carrie.
Thanks, Alysse.
Thank you.
I love
What
saying
an
that. Mary and
introduction.
Carrie and Mary. Like it's sing song, sing song. It's so fun to have you both here. I have followed your adventures online over the last couple of years. So I'm really excited just to kind of dive in and ask a bunch of questions. This may not surprise you, but I'm not the most outdoorsy person. I consider hiking, walking around the mall, right? But I do love the outdoors as a resident of the Pacific Northwest. So I'm really excited to get in and hear about your experiences. So let's start first with the turning point. Let's start with transformation. Maybe share a pivotal moment in your recovery that shifted everything for you. And what's the difference like been since then? Mary, would you like to start?
Sure. Yeah. Wow. I feel like there have been a lot of pretty pivotal moments. But for me, I would say, the journey to getting sober was definitely had a lot of ups and downs. There was about a 3-year period from the first time that I went to treatment to when I actually got sober. But a big pivotal point for me was, that second time I was really committed. Like I had gathered all the evidence that I needed. And I did my first yoga teacher training immediately after I finished treatment. And I was asking a lot of big questions at that time in my life about the career path that I had chosen. I was working at a digital media agency, and, so much of my day-to-day life was networking with alcohol and going out with friends in the city. And, I started to question if I still wanted to be in that space. And I ended up taking a short period of time to go and travel to Southeast Asia. I just gotten my yoga teacher certification, and that just opened up an entirely new world of possibilities to me that I had never could have anticipated before going on that trip. So what ended up happening was what was meant to be a 3-month backpacking trip turned into arriving at my first yoga and meditation retreat in Cambodia as a guest. And I ended up getting hired to stay there and teach. And from that moment on, I had this complete pivot in my life from this life of work hard, play harder, I would say, in the media industry, just completely trashing my body, to be completely honest, and really not looking after myself, to then committing fully to the path of recovery, and then finding myself on the opposite side of the world, living in a space where I felt really aligned with my purpose and connected to nature in a new way, and just really excited about this life that I was building. And I was thinking, as you were giving that introduction, I was like, wow, this is so interesting because, so much of what you said was around like adventure, and it just sounded so fun. Like, to me, before, recovery was like this awful sentence of like, you've really messed up and now you're going to be this boring sober person all alone, and I think that at that kind of moment was a really big turning point for me, where I was like, wow, there's a whole other path that I can take with this. And that's kind of what led me into teaching yoga and leading retreats and finding this love of travel.
I love that. And as someone who's also had decades of a career in media, I totally understand the world that you came from, that all the deals happened over drinks, all the networking, a lot of schmoozing, not necessarily lying, but kind of a lot of faking it. Just not very, the media world is not super authentic, right? Because everybody is wanting something from the other people. And so that must have felt like a ginormous shift. I'm also curious, like, did you just live out of one bag that whole time? Like, how did that work?
Well, that was the other funny thing, was that, I remember, like, I have this picture of my friend and I boarding the plane in Chicago with our backpacks on. And this was a totally foreign thing to us. Like, I had never done travel like that, where you're staying in hostels and backpacking and taking overnight buses. But it was actually really funny because, and I don't know if this is still the case, but backpacking around Southeast Asia, it was like everyone was wearing this kind of uniform of these elephant pants. They're like these thin cloth, oversized pants that you can just get at any market or anything like that. And I mean, really, what we were wearing day to day was shorts and tank tops and sarongs. And so we definitely were not making any sort of fashion statement by any means, but the way that we were traveling was extremely rustic and backpacker style. So yeah, we did. I mean, a lot of times we would recycle things. So like, we would get rid of certain clothes or, give them away and then get new things as we went. But yeah.
Okay, before we get to Carrie, I have one more question about attire. I like shoes. Did you just have one pair of shoes, or like how did that work?
It is amazing how much you can actually just, we went over with so little planned. Like, I literally mean, we had a flight booked to Bangkok. And it was actually really interesting when it came to going to Nepal about 4 months in, once the trip had been extended, because we literally had like sandals, as everything I mentioned, like what you'd be wearing around kind of tropical islands and jungle. And, even going over to Nepal, I remember we were doing a hiking trip, and like we landed there and all of a sudden we were like, okay, we got to Kathmandu. It's like, we bought our hiking boots, we bought our jackets, we got everything. So, I think that you can be really resourceful. And, when you're traveling, like, people are living their lives over there. So you can easily find everything that you need.
Oh, it stresses me out, but I'm also really curious, but it stresses me out because this will not surprise anyone. I am an overpacker. Like if we remember the movie Titanic and how she travels with like portraits and like everything, like I don't do it to that degree, but like, yeah, my bag always is like, has the sticker on it that says bend with the knees, heavy. Right. Carrie, what
But
about
it's
you?
actually so freeing. Like when you commit to that and you're like, that's the intention, you're like, wow, this is so nice. I remember I would come back and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to have clothes for like all the different seasons. And then you think about sort of how ridiculous it is that like every time a new season comes around in a new year, it's like we have to fully stock and be wearing different things every day and catching up with these trends. And it's actually sort of like you get to just
You
free yourself
don't.
from all of that.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, we're doing the flowy elephant pants every day on repeat. And
That is so funny. And for me, like I'm a maximalist. You know, my love of everything is more, more, more. But I dream of being a minimalist and like I watch documentaries on it, but we'll see. We'll see if I ever get there. I don't know. Carrie, what about you? Let's talk about your transformation.
I would say that when you were like asking about the pivotal moment, I really think one of my very first big pivotal moments was about 3 years in. And it's not as exciting as Mary's, but it was really transformative when I read Annie Grace's book. And I feel like I was given the permission of that it's not that I can't drink anymore, that I don't have to drink anymore. And for me, that was like the biggest gift that, I mean, I still like kind of get chills like thinking about that because I did like even a few years into it, like I still hadn't really found the fun yet. I hadn't like I hadn't owned my sobriety yet. I wasn't confident in my sobriety. I was doing all the things you were supposed to do. And like, I was really like trudging it and like, just, being a good sober girl. I don't know how to say it, but like reading that book and having a different perspective of just shifting that to like, oh, I actually don't have to drink was truly mind blowing to me. And the people I was hanging out with at that time, like kind of thought I was crazy for reading this particular, reading any book or whatever. And I remember buying a bunch of copies, like, give this to anybody. Buy anybody. I wasn't sponsoring women then. I wasn't like mentoring women then. And I was just like, give it to anybody that you can. So I don't know, that is what came to me as like one of the biggest like transformative parts of like being sober and like getting over this hump of like it becoming more part of my life and owning it and just, I don't know, seeing what more was on the other side of being sober was really big for me.
Yeah, if you give it time and you get to the other side, you realize
Yep.
there's a big, beautiful life there.
Yep.
We had a contributor for the site do a book review on Annie Grace's book, This Naked Mind, back in 2020 when we originally launched. And all these years later, it still frequently ends up in the top 20 articles of the month because it is just, it's such a good book. So if you have not read that book, we'll include a link in the show notes. Highly recommend that that's one that you have in your Quitlet library for sure. Talk a little bit about both of you, like how do you find your people in recovery? And I'd love to hear how you found each other.
So I loved my people when I first came in, but I always say that I wanted more, and I really wanted more. And it was like this like little desire in me that I was not going to let it go until I found more. And so my advice and what I did was I just kept putting myself out there, as uncomfortable as it was. If I heard that something was related to sobriety, that I could get there by bus, by train, by plane, truly, then I went for it because I really wanted to meet some more people because I just felt like that there was this big thing just kind of waiting there or something. I just felt like there was, and there was. And so I started like going, like I live in a suburb of Chicago. I started going to like She Recovers. There were a couple events in downtown Chicago. I went by myself. I tried to do some meetups to meet some other people. Mary and I were introduced to each other. This is so fun, in a sober bar.
I didn't know that. I didn't know
in a
that.
sober bar it's in Naperville, which is a suburb of Chicago, and we were introduced by a mutual friend. And it was so cute. Mary was like at the bar, and our friend was like, I think you two should meet. And Mary was so cute. And she was like, do you want to be on my podcast? And podcasts obviously make me nervous. And I was like, no, okay. And then Mary had me on her podcast, and truly, I just felt so connected to her. After that podcast, I said, okay, well, not to sound weird, but I really like you. Do you want to host a retreat with me in like a couple months? And she said yes.
Sounds like a proposal.
Exactly.
That is an adorable meet cute story for sure.
Totally.
And Mary, what was your reaction to Carrie?
Oh, I was so excited. It's funny because, yeah, when we were having that conversation, I was so excited to actually connect with someone. I mean, it was kind of crazy meeting Carrie because for me, I'm originally from the suburbs outside of Chicago, and I was living in Chicago when I got sober. And at that time, like, I really didn't see a possibility of being sober in Chicago. Like, I just was like, there is no way to have a social life. This was in 2013 before Chicago AF started. So I was already like a major fangirl of what she was doing. And I was so excited about this whole idea that there were these alcohol-free social events and things like that that were happening, because that was a huge missing piece for me. Even when I got sobriety down, like, having a social life is really important, and being able to connect with people. So it was very exciting meeting her. And then also when we were talking, it was like we both had this huge interest in bringing people together in nature and combining recovery. And we had done different types of retreats and hiking and bringing that all together. So it was super fun having the conversation. And then being able to host a retreat together was like, okay, absolutely,
Magic.
Yeah. And it's really,
that's
it's
fun.
great to find people that you can work well together with. And it's always been super natural and easy for us, I feel like. And so that's another thing that I really, really appreciate, is to be able to, like, we approach recovery in a really similar way. I think we have a similar view on retreats and, the transformative power of what can happen on them, and also just the value in having fun and going on adventures together.
And there is something about, and this is again just my experience, you guys can tell me if you think I'm wrong, but like, there's something about connecting with other people that are on this sobriety path, recovery path, whatever description makes you more comfortable, that we're able to bond. When I meet somebody else who also doesn't drink, regardless of why, usually they are in recovery, and we can just dive right into like these really intense conversations sometimes that like you would not normally share with someone until you'd known them for weeks or months or maybe even years. But like, I can know someone in 10 minutes and like, bleh, like just start telling them my whole life story. You know what I'm saying? And not being afraid that they're going to judge me because I know they're coming from a similar place.
I totally agree with that. And I just had lunch with some friends that are not in recovery, and I hadn't seen them in a couple of years. And I did my usual of like, of being like straight up. They said, how are you? I said, good. And then I filled them in on like all of the actual real things that have happened. And they just looked at me like I was crazy. Like, I left that lunch being like, okay, I should not have, like, I know exactly what you're saying, because I don't know. It's just a different connection. It's a different bond. It's cutting everything out and just getting to the point. And I love that.
Well, and I think you're onto something there, Carrie, because when you start to be in so many of the conversations like we're in the recovery and sobriety communities, that I forget sometimes. And then when I go back to the normal drinker world, they're not ready for all that.
I know.
They're not used to all that authenticity and unfilteredness. And they're just like, what is happening? Right. Like, then they're like, I need a drink. And I'm like, oh, sorry. I don't blame you. You probably do,
Yeah. And I think there's too just something really special about that shared connection when it comes to like addiction and recovery. And I really realized that because, like early on with this whole idea of finding your people, I think that, I found my people in the rooms of AA and in treatment. And then, when I moved across the world, I really felt like, oh, I'm living in this kind of like-minded community of people who are also really interested in yoga and this healthy lifestyle. And that really was supportive. But I realized after a while, I was like, there's something missing. Like I need to actually be part of the recovery community. And I had to go out and seek that out. And I think part of that is just, there is like a lot of like stigma. And I think a lot of us kind of internalize this shame, and it can, like, I feel like that part of me was still kind of broken off and hidden away. Like, even though I was embracing this new lifestyle, I was like, I kind of need this all to be like out there, with somebody. Like I need to be able to share this in a group of people who really get it.
Well, let's pivot and start talking about like what you're working on now. Like, what are your current projects and your passions? Like, I know you're both excited. You wake up every day, you're not hungover. So, like, what are you working on that you're really excited to share? Mary, you can go.
Yeah,
first.
I'm like, who's gonna go? Well, I feel like there's always several things happening simultaneously, but one of the things that I'm super, super excited about this year, Carrie and I have continued to partner together on retreats. So the first international one to Everest Base Camp in Nepal is going to be absolutely like probably one of the most meaningful experiences of my life. And, hopefully everyone who's involved, I think it's a pretty life-changing trip. And also planning Moab in the fall, a women's retreat. So I think, focusing on retreats is a really big thing. It's something that actually I have so much excitement for and probably endless energy for. And then, yeah, I do, coaching, and I'm really something that I've been really focusing on over the last couple of years since I moved back to Colorado is more in-person connection. So I've been doing like yoga and recovery workshops and teaching for an organization called the Phoenix, and just trying to like be with people in person. Cause as much as I love the virtual stuff and have a great online community and love connecting over Zoom, I'm really like feeling pulled in that direction too.
Yeah. Colorado is so beautiful. Have you had a chance to interact with the organization Sober Outdoors?
I just came across them, and I've been, it's like been on my list to like kind of reach out and engage more, because I'd love to hear more what you know about them. Cause I came across, I think, something on Instagram, and I was like, Sober Outdoors, Colorado? Like, these are my people.
They are totally your people. Yes, Nick actually just became a Sober Curator contributor at the beginning of 2025. And so we've been putting up all of the events they're having on our Sober events calendar. And so I will make sure to do an email to introduce you to each other. It's my job. I'm trying to become the Kevin Bacon of recovery. So it's my job to make sure I'm the connector and bringing all these people together. But I have a big love for Colorado. It gives off a lot of Washington vibes. And so when I go there, I feel very comfortable because it's such a beautiful state.
Yeah. When I saw that, like Sober Outdoors, because to me, so much, of my own recovery has been spent in nature, like leaning more into spending time in nature. And I just think that there's so much there, like so much healing to be had in nature, and also just like so many natural highs of, whether you're watching the sunset or sunrise or hiking with friends. And so I really love to see communities that are getting people outside to kind of rediscover that, because I think when you've spent so much time chasing highs in the form of alcohol or whatever, like we can forget what's available, right outside of our doorstep.
There's also an organization here in the Pacific Northwest called Recovery Beyond, and they've published actually a couple of documentaries. They climb mountains, they go kayaking, they play pickleball. They just are always doing outdoor activities, and I think it's really cool that all kinds of organizations like this are popping up all over the country, because you get sober and you're like, what am I going to do with my time now? If I'm not partying and I'm not nursing a hangover, like, what do I do? And you have all this energy and you feel good. And so a lot of people take up new hobbies, and so many of them end up in the great outdoors.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's great to do it with other people in recovery. I was actually just talking to some friends about this past weekend, because I went snowshoeing with some people, and I'd never done that before. And those shoes are so awkward. At one point, I was trying to turn around and like fully fell on my butt. But again, it's like when you're with people in recovery, you feel totally comfortable to have those moments. Like there's something about it that I think just kind of like made me feel so much more at ease of like, okay, I'll go snowshoeing with a bunch of strangers and be out in the wilderness for 8 hours, you know?
I love that you said that it's okay. Like it's okay to be awkward. Like because we're all awkward. We have no liquid courage. So we're all just leaning into the awkward and just letting it all hang out. And I have never been snowshoeing, but I feel like that's something I could try. I feel like that's an activity I could do without harming myself.
Oh yeah, it's so fun.
Yeah, I'm not coordinated enough to ski or snowboard. I tried that. It was not it didn't take, but I think I could probably snowshoe. Carrie, what about you? What's going on with you?
I'm really excited about our upcoming retreats this year. It's cute because I'm obviously not in Colorado. We're right outside of Chicago. So my husband is coming to Nepal with us, and so is my son. So I'm really excited to share these adventures with my family because all of my retreat adventures to this far have not included my family. So we've been putting all our gear on and trekking around the neighborhood. I always send Mary a little text. I want to text her every time, but I only actually text you like 1/10 of the time.
You need to send photos too.
Okay. But she was recently in town. It was so cute because we are not packing lightly for this trip that we're doing. We are like completely buying anything that we're told to buy. And so we had it like all laid out for her to see when she came recently. But I'm really excited to go to Nepal. I truly can't even wrap my head around the magnitude and magnificence of what's about to hit me. I can't. And then with the retreat in September, it was Mary's idea to go glamping. And so I'm really excited to do something totally different. I've never been glamping before, which sounds right up my alley with the type of camping I would like to do. So it's these beautiful safari type tents with like a hardwood floor. And then you're right in like the beautiful great outdoors of Moab. So I'm super
Oh,
pumped about that.
that sounds
But
amazing. That sounds
yeah,
like more my style too. I think I could
yeah, me
I
too.
think I could glamp.
Yeah, and then just professionally also, I'm really excited I've been kind of talking about really wanting to like talk about sobriety with regards to the medical profession, and I'm going to give well, kind of a keynote speech for some medical providers, and I'm going to be talking about my recovery, in addition to some philanthropic work that I've done in the past. So to me, that's kind of a big deal to be crossing that bridge and talking about it like with other medical providers. So I'm really grateful for that opportunity that's coming up. So I want to keep like pushing forward in that direction and like being of service and being able to help other providers know that, you're not unique. It's the same as
Mhm.
anybody else.
Mhm.
Got to tell you, and there's help
Mhm.
and there's hope and we can do this. So
Mhm.
that's what's coming up on my horizon also.
I love that. I mean, rethinking drinking in the workplace, it doesn't matter what the workplace is.
Yep.
It's an important conversation that HR and all companies should be having because at least 1/3 of the workplace doesn't consume alcohol for whatever reason. But in a lot of workspaces, like the main culture building activities usually surround a happy hour.
Yep.
And so I think that's great, especially in the medical profession. Just from what I've witnessed, there seems to be, you would think that the medical profession would like totally understand the about addiction and all the different layers to it. But in my experience, that has not been the case.
Nope.
That has not been the case. I even once had a nurse, they were trying to draw blood, and it was sometimes a little challenging at drawing blood. And so they had to bring in a special nurse. And
Mm-hmm.
he was like, yeah, I can get this in the first try. And if I don't, I'll owe you a beer. And I'm like, why are you offering me a beer? I'm
Yep.
here having my heart checked. Like something there, the math doesn't math.
Yep.
So it's just so important to continue to communicate with all the different communities that we interact with because it affects everybody.
Yep.
Well, let's take a turn here into the land of lifestyle and pop culture. That is my passion, is talking about how those two things intercross and how they influence our sober lifestyles. So I would love to hear from both of you, like, what are you watching in the land of what I like to call sober pop culture, whether it's documentaries or podcasts? We already talked about Annie Grace's book, but like, what do you love to consume content wise that keeps you motivated, inspired, and entertained as you like trudge this journey of recovery?
Yeah.
I can go first on this one, if that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So I love Armchair Expert with Dax Shepard and Monica Padman. Dax is in recovery, and if I know anything, it's typically because I heard about it from Armchair Expert. So it's how I educate my family on anything happening. But I truly love the way that he can weave addiction in recovery into any single person he's talking to. And he typically does that. And so for me, it's just kind of like an extra layer of like listening about recovery, hearing recovery. And then I love their banter. I don't know why I don't get sick of it. So that's my number one recommendation.
Mary, what about you?
For podcasts, I really love the Rich Roll podcast. And I think it's so nice how, there's such high production value of that. So I'm usually sitting and watching it on my TV. It almost feels like like the Oprah show, where you're like interviewing these great people. And the thing that I love is that he, his background is addiction. And, when I first came across his podcast, it was through like wellness, and he interviews a lot of really inspiring people that have done all sorts of incredible, physical feats or in their wellness businesses or whatever that might be. But he, often uncovers like a lot of the history that, actually was the catalyst that allowed them to have these incredible transformation stories. And so I think throughout the podcast, you hear all these really inspiring people that have done incredible things, and you really come to appreciate that it was through their struggle that got them there. And I love that he speaks really openly about his own experience. And, he comes from an AA background, and he'll definitely like challenge people on views that he doesn't agree with. And it's really nice. I love hearing that dialogue, because now there's so many different voices, which I think is so great within this recovery and sober movement. And so I just love the confidence that he has to like really speak firmly about what's worked for him and what he believes in, but then is totally willing to go into the hard conversations and hear other people's points of view. So yeah, I think it's not even that it's considered a recovery podcast, but it dives into it in such an interesting way.
Yeah, both of the podcasts you both mentioned are mainstream podcasts. They're not known as sober or recovery podcasts, but because both of those hosts are in recovery, you see how it just comes out in everything. We actually had Megan Swan, who's our wellness coach and contributor at the Sober Curator. She actually went on a Rich Roll retreat to Italy. I'll put a link to the trip in the show notes. She went for a week, and his wife is incredible, and she's vegan and does all these recipes. And so it was this whole week in this fabulous place in Italy, and they had all this food, and they did yoga, and they got to watch him record episodes of the podcast live. And that posted very well on the site, not as well as the Annie Grace post, but it did very well. And she came back, and she was just glowing, and she was just like, that was so amazing.
That's
and
amazing.
She just had the best time. So I think it's so cool that there are so many options now for vacations and retreats that you can go in the sober spaces.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was so interesting for me because my introduction to retreats, when I first got to that retreat center that I worked at in Cambodia in 2014, it was almost structured more like an ashram. Like there was no Wi-Fi. It was strictly vegan diet. There was definitely no alcohol or drugs allowed on the property. So I was like, wow, retreats are my thing, like I just thought that's what retreats are. And then I started traveling after that, and I met people who were like talking about these retreats that they went on that were like drinking by the pool. And I'm like, what?
What?
So I guess it is kind of funny, but I think that there is so many ways to define that. But I do love that there are so many options for people because really like what I found the first retreat that I went on, I'm like, this just frees me from the stress and the social pressure and this feeling that I get in other settings where I'm somehow on the outside of everything that's happening. And so to get this space to just connect with people when you're sitting and having a meal and there's no, it's a non-issue. It just felt like a really great way to also practice like getting more confident in your sobriety. And I think that's something that we really see in people and love to create space for on retreats. Like I remember on our most recent one we did in Glacier, at one point we're all just like sitting around the table laughing. One woman was telling this hilarious story. And I'm like, you know, this is no different than these kind of dinners where like the wine is flowing and everyone is loosening up. It's just, you don't need it. We were all like telling these hilarious stories that were like kind of embarrassing moments, but it was just so freeing.
It is so freeing. And I don't like it when I go on a retreat or to an all-inclusive resort and I'm having to basically pay the same as the people consuming alcohol. It's like, but I'm not even consuming any of that. It's almost like when you go to dinner with 10 of your friends and 8 of them are drinkers and you're going to split the bill 10 ways. It's like, oh, okay. You know, I mean, it's fine. I usually don't make a big deal of it, but it's nice when I can go to a space where like, that's all just taken care of.
Totally.
What about any movies or documentaries or books you guys want to touch on? Carrie's like, I don't have time for that.
No,
I'm a working mom.
This is my thinking hat.
I thought the Amy Winehouse documentary was really well done and
It
really
was really
like
well
portrayed, because it's like you fall in love with her character. And I think it's really important for people to see those real life stories of addiction, because you do really, you know, it's so painful to watch, and you kind of get that, you understand. Like, it's just like, I think when people don't have someone in their immediate life who they've witnessed go through addiction, or if they haven't experienced it personally, you know, you might not have that same level of compassion. But I think documentaries, and like same with podcasts, like hearing people tell their stories is really, really valuable, because you realize just through hearing the stories, it's like, these are not bad, immoral people, you know?
Did you also by chance see the fictionalized movie of Amy Winehouse that came out in, I think it was 2023, 2024?
No.
It was, I don't think it was as good as the documentary, but I thought the actress that played her did a very good job of really taking on the character. Both physically, she looked like her, but just the nuances of how she moved and spoke and held herself. I thought it was pretty well done, but not as good as the documentary. The documentary was really good. Well, what other things in lifestyle and pop culture? We talked about nature. Is there music or other meaningful adventures that like play into your lifestyles?
I would definitely say like yoga and exercise and physical movement has been massive. Like that is something that I think was the first time in treatment. I actually was my mom started taking me to yoga classes during my first time in treatment, but I don't really think that I recognized enough how valuable it could be to kind of like restore that connection to my body. And then also just experience the benefits of movement, you know, like there's a lot of times what we're seeking through alcohol, whether it's to reduce anxiety or to get that, you know, energy boost or to lift our mood, like we can get that through our body, whether we're doing yoga practices that help to calm our nervous system, or whether we're doing kind of more like cardio and HIIT classes where we're getting the benefits of being around other people and also getting that energy boost. There's this great author, Kelly McGonigal, who wrote a book called The Joy of Movement. And she talks about collective effervescence, like when you're in a group fitness class or movement class and you're all moving in sync, and how you get that this like added energy of moving in sync with other people. And that's something that I find, especially if you're more introverted and like you don't necessarily want to go out and like sit and have conversations with people, but you can go into a class, you get like that benefit of community too.
Yes, I totally agree. And over the course of my recovery, I went through periods where I was obsessed with Zumba. I was totally obsessed with Zumba. I was also obsessed with hip hop dancing. I don't know that I was any good, right? I was never like a dancer in high school or anything like that. But just that energy you get from being coordinated with other people made me feel like a rock star. Even though I was in the back row, I was definitely usually off 2 beats, but I was still there and I was trying. And that's not anything I would have done before getting sober. Like, no.
No time for that.
No. All right. Well, what I like to move is we wrap up here. We go into this section, rapid fire questions, which we like to call sober shots. Pew, 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 pew. There's my sound effects because we don't have any. So just off the top, your knee-jerk response, just let me know what comes to mind. Let's start with okay, Mary, do you have a favorite yoga brand, like a mat or yoga clothing line? Like what's your favorite go-to yoga apparel?
Vori, and I still don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right. I discovered since my family got me into that, and now I'm like fully, and they're actually really good to yoga teachers too. So I get a very generous discount there, which is nice, but I really love Vori.
All right. I like that. Carrie, what is your sober drink of choice?
Topo Chico with lime.
Oh, yes. The lime does make all the difference. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. This one is to both of you. Sober superpower.
I would say that mine is being present and honest.
Yep.
I want to add one for you because the first thing that came to mind is you're like such a community builder, like connector.
That is
Yep.
her superpower for sure.
Thank you.
For sure. You're a little magnet, Carrie. You're a little magnet.
Sober superpower. I mean, I think this superpower of sobriety, like that I've experienced, is actually just like similar to Carrie said, like being present and just really experiencing life as it's happening, like feeling the full spectrum of emotions and not trying to constantly like change or fix or alter. So I think kind of like just embracing life as it comes.
Mm-hmm.
I like that you radiate confidence. So I'm not sure if you it's like this like quiet, but like awesome confidence.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Aww.
To have other people say our superpowers, huh? That's
That's
interesting because that's the
cute.
thing that I think that sobriety, like I felt like when I was drinking or cocaine was like my drug of choice. It was just being this very like I really leaned on that to feel
Yeah.
like I needed that to show up in any sort of situation. So that's nice of you to say it. I definitely feel like sobriety at first I kind of shriveled up and was like, what am I gonna do?
No, I love it. It's super attractive.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I was just thinking the other day, when the memories come up on social media, Facebook or wherever, and I see something from 5 years ago or 10 years ago, I can actually remember all the details. But when I think back to my life pre getting sober, and I got sober right when social media was starting, when I think back before that, like it's all blurry. I don't really know,
Mm-hmm.
and I still took pictures then too. They were, we had to get them developed and they were usually blurry or had my finger in them. But I just have so many more memories now because of the fact that I'm clear-minded and practice being present. And it's such a gift. What about your ultimate sober hangout? If you could have your perfect sober day, what would you do? Mary.
Oh my gosh. Can there be flights and like
Yep, but you only have 24 hours. You only have 24 hours.
It would be, I mean, honestly, similar to like the retreat experience. Like I love to be able to wake up and not have anything that like immediately floods my mind that I need to do during the day, but to actually wake up and the first thing to be able to watch the sunrise, to move my body in some way, whether that's yoga or hiking and just like be outside and going on adventures. Like I get the most crazy highs just from seeing like beautiful epic nature. So right now it's like the mountains are that place for me. And I think, like glacial lakes and, waterfalls and all of the things and just kind of being on an adventure and being able to share that with other people, like having great meals and bonfires and all of that. I think there would be a lot of adventure involved.
Love that.
I totally agree. I think I would also have a beach, a beautiful beach with aqua water, and I want to laugh a lot. I love to laugh and just not have to work and be able to, I would love to read. In addition, I'd like to have a little downtime in addition to just laughing a lot.
All right. Well, as we wrap up here, thank you both for your time today and your contribution to our community at large. It's so appreciated. Where can our very many listeners find you? And what do you have? Just maybe recap again what you have coming up and how we can find you. Mary, I'll start with you.
Yeah. So my website is sunandmoonsoberliving.com. And on there you can find, I have an online community, the Sun and Moon Sober Living community. We meet virtually over Zoom. There's a podcast, Instagram. I share on there pretty regularly. It's at sunandmoon.soberliving. And I love when people reach out like by DM. It's kind of funny. I feel like I've made a lot of really close friends that just started with like an Instagram message or something like resonating that someone else shared. And so I always really encourage that. Like if, I love connecting with people, especially people who are on a sober journey, and we have so much to learn from each other. So yeah, there's a few places to find me.
I love that. Carrie?
And you can find me at chicagoafcommunity.com. I have an Instagram also at chicagoaf community. You can DM if I think it looks safe. I'll DM you back. Otherwise, I've been hacked twice, so I'm like super afraid of DMs. You probably will reach me better by emailing me.
I should be careful saying that.
Yeah, and then I've also been hacked. It's a real thing, Mary. It's a real thing.
Next thing you know, my profile is going to be like taken over, and you're going to be like, "What happened?"
braverecoverycoaching.com is where you can find me also for coaching and for retreats. And then I have a Instagram as well, Brave Recovery Coaching.
Amazing.
And thank you for having us, Alysse. We're so happy to be here.
Well, I'm big fans, and keep sending us all the retreats you're doing. We would love to have them on our Sober Retreats calendar. That is gaining in popularity. And I just want to thank you both, Mary and Carrie, because I just wanted to say that one more time. Mary and Carrie, you guys should have your own little show. It's like Romy and Michelle, but it's Mary and Carrie. Thank you for sharing your incredible journeys and showing us all the ways that sober living can be so exciting, so adventurous, and just deeply fulfilling. I can just feel it through the screen. And our listeners, remember, getting sober matters, but staying sober, that's what matters more. Until next time, keep it real, keep it fun, and keep it sober. Thanks for tuning in, because let's be real, we're way more fun than your ex's drunk texts.
If you laughed, learned, or just need more of our voices in your life, honestly, who wouldn't? Hit that subscribe button, leave us a review, and send this episode to your sober or your I swear I'm only drinking on the weekends besties.
And if you have a story, feedback, or hey, maybe you just want to slide into our DMs like it's 2012, well, we're here for it. Find more curated magic at thesobercurator.com. And remember, getting sober matters, staying sober matters more. Until next time, keep it real, keep it fun, and keep it sober.